Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be jam-packed with all types of Bears NFL news. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Can't afford to take your family of four to a Blackhawks game? Well, easy enough is for less than the price of one ticket to the Blackhawks, you can take your whole family to see the Ice Hogs. Less than 90 minutes from the city limits, fun for the whole family. Head on over to icehogs.com. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you.
Hey, at least these last few home games for the Hawks won't be quite as expensive.
Yeah. They lost to Buffalo.
Oh, that was bad. I was watching that, and you know what? I wasn't even upset at this point. I'm just I'm not surprised. This team is bad, so they're probably going to blow the lead they have tonight to the Blues, and they're going to let the Blues squeak into the playoffs. So this season is just misery.
It's like it started bad, and then at the point where all right, they're going to turn it on. They just did the opposite and just started plummeting towards the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, that game in Winnipeg when it was 5-1 at the end of the first, that just, ugh. And we've seen that happen multiple times this year. We saw it happen to the Coyotes. We saw it happen to the Jets. Just a total free fall.
I don't even know how to describe it. And it's funny because when you're reading the beat writers and such writing about the Blackhawks, the debate now is who's going to be Crawford's backup next year, Berube or Forsberg, and you're like, who cares? They both stink.
Yeah, I mean, they got to do something, right? You would think that they would go out for a veteran backup this offseason, wouldn't you think?
You would think. I mean, they have some money, but I don't know what their plan is. I don't know how they go about this. I don't even know if there's going to be major shakeups on the organization. I don't know where they go from here, honestly.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting offseason because there's a lot of question when it comes to both Stan Bowman and Coach Quenneville, as well as a lot of the people actually on the team. I think one thing's for sure, you're not going to see Taze, Sod, or Kane go anywhere. You can't really see Keith or Seabrook go anywhere. You're pretty much stuck with that. But in terms of, like you said, who's going to back up Corey Crawford, B, the draft is going to be huge, and C, they're going to have to fill in some holes if they want to keep trying to contend with this, unless they decide to try to sell some more. If they try to sell Artem Anisimov, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I read that the star of the German Olympic team, that the Blackhawks are aggressively trying to sign him to an NHL contract.
Yeah, I heard that too. I don't even know, how old is he?
I couldn't even tell you.
Because there's nothing wrong with drafting international players, developing international players, but I just feel like taking a guy overseas while he's in his mid to late 20s and just trying to plug him into the NHL, that's just not the way to fix things.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it worked pulling a guy from the KHL, but I guess he was younger last year or 2 years ago. And it really hasn't been that great with Jan Ruda bringing him over. But I don't know. I don't know where they go. I mean, I think that's their plan is to try to sign as many cheap, unproven guys from overseas and plug them in. You hope that works.
Yeah, again, sometimes it works, but I don't think that's always the way to go. I think the best thing to do is when you get guys overseas is when they're really young and you have the opportunity to develop them in an NHL system, which includes the ECHL and the AHL and the OHL and all the minor league teams here, because that's how you develop prospects. It just, I mean, sometimes you just get raw talent that adjusts over here, but a lot of the times it doesn't always work. So I don't know. There's so much uncertainty right now. I mean, for all we know, Coach Q could be gone and they take an Uber left turn, or they just kind of stand pat and try to patchwork things. And I don't know. It's kind of hard to justify trying to cheaply patchwork things, because I think the organization has more issues than just kind of meets the eye. I'm not saying like, oh, there's tension with ownership, and I'm not saying all that kind of bad stuff. I'm just saying that the team and maybe some of the coaching is just clearly not working anymore, and they need to do something else. And wouldn't you know, the Blackhawks just blew a 2-0 lead.
And I looked, they actually did sign him already. German forward Dominic Cahoon to a 2-year entry contract worth $940,000 annually. He's 22 years old. He scored 12 goals and 41 points in 42 games this season for Red Bull EHC München.
Well, we'll see if it works. I'm talking and then there they go. They blow a 2-0 lead. Isn't that so Hawks?
You know what is at this point, I saw the article you wrote, and it was funny because I was going to bring this up is, should the Blackhawks just tank at this point? I mean, they're drafting like 6th or 7th right now.
Yeah, they were in the 8th yesterday after their loss to Buffalo.
They're ranked, or they're 24th out of 31 teams if you look at the league standings. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, it's 8th. But they're right there with Edmonton. So
yeah, I mean, the only reason I want to win tonight is I just kind of want to spoil the Blues' playoff chances. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, the Blues. Screw the Blues.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel like they're on the outside looking in, but I think when this is all said and done, they squeak in, they outlast Dallas and the Ducks, and they squeak in by like 1 point. That's how I see it unfolding. Just because this season has just been hell for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it would make me happier if they didn't make the playoffs, and the wild cards were Colorado and Anaheim. That would make me happier than see Dallas and St. Louis.
Or Dallas and Colorado.
I don't even like Dallas. I mean,
that's fair.
But I don't know. I'm gonna root for Vegas if once the playoffs start.
Yeah, I'm gonna root for Vegas or the Capitals or the Lightning. If any of those three win, I'd be okay with that. I don't want to see Nashville win. I don't really want to see the Wild win. I don't really want to see the Blues win. If they make it, I don't know if they're going to win it, but it would be really interesting to see how far Colorado could go.
I don't think they can go that far, honestly. There's some really good teams in the playoffs this year, and I guess every year there are, but I just think there's too many strong teams that will match up well against them, and it's going to be hard because anybody but Nashville is going to have Vegas is going to have home ice advantage, and that's a tough place to play this year. So I just can't see Colorado going.
Yeah, that's fair. The one top team that I think is just going to flounder right off the bat are the Jets. I don't see them going that far.
That's what they do.
But I mean, have we seen them be this good before?
I don't. Maybe like. No, I don't think so. I don't think we've seen them that good in recent memory.
I just remember them getting swept by the Ducks a few years ago in the playoffs. That's really all I remember. But they just don't seem like a team to me. And a lot of it's just kind of a feeling. It just doesn't seem like they're going to go that far. Honestly, I'd be shocked at this point if Vegas or the Predators didn't go far. More the Predators. I feel like they are the team to beat in really one of the teams to beat in hockey.
Yeah, they went in because they were good all season, but now they're like hitting overdrive.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes when you hit overdrive a little too early, but I mean, you're almost done with the season, and if they could kind of keep this mojo up for a little bit longer, that's pretty good for them. Did
you see that? All right, Taves, I think we all know, got his 20th goal of the season.
Yeah,
for the 11th straight season.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see who the other players were that have done that?
I did not see the list, but I bet it's a good list.
It is Kane. This might have been only active players, but it's Kane and Ovechkin.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Crosby probably would have done it, except he had injuries.
Right.
But nobody. That's it.
I have a question for you about Jonathan Toews. Speaking of him, not just Jonathan Toews, but let's say Toews and Kane and maybe Saad here. Would you be tempted to just shut them down for like the last few games of the season? Because they don't mean anything?
No, just because major injuries in hockey don't really happen that often. It's not like football where somebody could tear their ACL or they. So I would probably leave them in. If this was football, definitely I'd be shutting players down. But in hockey, you really don't see that many super serious injuries, like career-ending injuries, unless you saw teams start taking a run at guys and concussion type issues. But I don't know. I would probably just let them play.
Okay, that's fair. Because I know their last two games are back-to-back, and it's against, I think, St. Louis and the Jets, I believe? Something like that.
Yeah, and I don't think the Jets definitely, I don't think will take a run at anybody because suspensions will be carried over into the playoffs.
And they already have clinched.
Yeah, if the Blues are not going to make the playoffs, then I might sit some guys out for that game because the things could get a little chippy. But if they make the playoffs, I would just play everybody throughout.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I was just kind of thinking over that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just I'm less concerned with NHL injuries than I am with NFL injuries where, look at Teddy Bridgewater. He was just walking and his knee exploded.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and they were saying people were like throwing up when they saw that. Like, that's how bad it was.
Yeah, they were saying throwing up and crying, and I was like, what?
Ugh. I don't even want to think about what it looked like.
I mean, it probably looked like a worse version of Zach Miller's injury.
And that was pretty bad.
That I couldn't watch again. I think I mentioned it before, is my buddy Gary was at his house, and our kids were, being kids, and so we just kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, oh man, Zach Miller caught a touchdown. And I was like, what happened to his knee? And like they started showing, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't watch this. And my friend Gary looked and was like, oh, look at that knee. And I was done. I could not look at it again. And
Yeah, that was horrific.
and unsurprisingly, is somebody I know that's from when I lived in Philly, that's a diehard Eagles fan, posted a animated GIF on repeat of the knee just exploding, because that's what Philadelphia fans do. But that knee poop. But I was just like, I can't. I had to block him on Facebook because I couldn't watch that again.
Yeah, it's something that legit makes you want to throw up. And then after that all happened was that just god awful call, and my mind was temporarily distracted because I was so fuming mad that they took that touchdown away. Then they showed the replay again, and then I felt nauseous again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just they couldn't watch the replay again, the officials. So I don't know.
Still,
that was a
no.
bad, that was a bad call. That was a bad call.
That was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. Not the worst, but one of the worst.
It's funny because the sports radio host in my top 5 who I just want to punch is Dan Bernstein, and he's always smug about, well, that, it makes sense to catch it. If you think about it, it's just totally obvious. What is a catch? And like, no, it's not. It's clearly not. Officials can't figure it out. They're reevaluating it again of what a catch is. So clearly it's not common sense, Dan Bernstein.
It's probably the most unclear rule in modern sports is what is a catch in the NFL, I'd argue. Obviously, like, the strike zone can be kind of arbitrary, but that is such a tricky thing to nail down to a T. The catch thing, that's just a complete mess. I mean, wouldn't you agree that's probably the most controversial rule right now in all of sports?
Oh, absolutely. And I know balls and strikes are debated, but I mean, it's not like one pitch determines an at bat. There's, typically multiple pitches per at bat. So the pitcher and the hitter can both adjust to a call that they don't agree with. And typically, for the most part, is umpires are consistent with what they're calling, even if it's not consistent in what you expect the strike, the standard strike zone to be. If they're calling slightly outside a strike, they're typically going to call outside the strike in that same spot all day long. So you just have to adjust what their definition is. But with a catch, that's, if you call it incomplete, that's it. It's done. You lose that down. I mean, that's a much bigger effect because it's there's no do-over.
Well, and plus the rule changes almost from play to play. How many times in a game have we seen a catch called that wasn't a catch, that ended up not being a catch, that should have been a catch, and then a catch that was made that you could argue wasn't a catch was called a catch? You see it in the same game. There's no consistency. That's a big problem. And not to mention that a lot of these controversial catch versus no catch rules, I use rules very loosely, air quotes, they've been in big plays. Look at the Des Bryant play. Look at the Calvin Johnson play against the Bears in, 2009, 2010. Those are just to name 2 examples out of many.
Yeah, and those are actually the 2 examples I was going to bring up. Those and the 2 catches in the Super Bowl. And honestly, I thought all 4 were catches. If any of them weren't going to be a catch, it was the touchdown in the Super Bowl of those 4. But Des Bryant, that was a catch.
They even said it was a catch.
Even though it was against my team, and I appreciated the outcome as a fan, that the Megatron one against the Bears was totally a catch. Sorry. I
was too busy pounding my pillow on the couch watching that to see that they overruled that.
When they overruled it, I was pumping my fists, and I was like, finally, a bad call goes in our favor.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often to us.
No, so I was very happy that we got the the cheated victory, but it's clearly an issue, and I don't understand, because they have clearly made it a thing where the ground can't cause the fumble. Is when I was younger, the ground could cause the fumble. And they were like, okay, ground can't cause the fumble. Okay, we've established that. So we know when the guy goes to the ground, if he had control of it going to the ground and hits the ground and then it pops out, it's not like the equivalent of it would be that being a fumble with the incomplete passes, but it's not, because it doesn't make sense. If you have control and you go to the ground and then the ball pops out after you're already on the ground, that makes sense that that's not a fumble. Just like it makes sense if you make a catch and hit the ground, as long as you had possession of it, if the ball pops out after you hit the ground, it should be, a completed pass.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem very clear these days. Like, now you have all these weird arbitrary, like the intention of, or did he maintain possession in so many steps? Are those steps clear? There's just so many different questions being asked with pretty much every catch nowadays that's under review. You don't know. You can see a catch that looks so obvious, but in this day and age, you're watching the game thinking, they could call this back. We don't know what a catch is. And if they did, why be mad? Because we wouldn't even be surprised at this point. That's how bad it's gotten.
And honestly, I think where the confusion and nonsense comes from is the fact that they have to write this rule down, and describing it in words sounds, try to describe it like a definition, and you're like, all right, well, then this starts getting complicated. Whereas if you just like show a video and be like, this is a catch and this is not a catch, and everyone goes, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like a picture is worth 1,000 words. But then you start describing it, and then that's when you get confusion.
Right, and the longer you try to describe it, the more confusion there's going to be.
Exactly. So you end up with over describing things, and then that leaves confusion in people's mind more than just watching a video and go, this is a catch, this is not a catch. No fan has ever read the rules of the NFL, and I doubt the officials have either. So who needs to write them down? Just show a video, be like, that's a catch, this is not a catch, there we go, bada bing bada boom.
You have all sorts of computer technology and simulations you could run to explain what it is visually in a video presentation, graphics, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You show replays, you show videos, you show examples, and you're like, oh, this is a catch. You just look at it with common sense. And I think that's when you start over analyzing, like, what is a catch, what is not a catch, and you just are over analyzing it. Then you start questioning it, and then it gets confusing, and then you're like, well, is this right? What did other people do? The whole world's watching me. Whereas if you just were like, all right, let me just use my gut instinct. Did he catch it or not?
I wonder if there will be a day in the far future where instead of the referee coming out and making the call, it'll be shown on a jumbotron, or, maybe by then they'll have holograms, basically a computer simulation replay of what happened and a quick description, like a robot voice, kind of, whether it was a catch or wasn't a catch, or any call whatsoever, touchdown, out of bounds, like anything. I wonder if that will ever become a thing.
Or like when they do motion capture stuff where they hook you up to all those things, if they did that and to the ball and to the player's hands, and they could, analyze it from more angles than they can with cameras, where they have every single angle because they have the motion capture stuff.
That would be a very interesting idea, because you'd actually see the replay of what happened through like all sorts of different angles, and basically a 3D model of what happened. And you could almost, I mean, I know technology isn't always perfect, but you could use a computer algorithm to basically calculate whether or not it followed the rule. The rule would be a certain code, and if it did not match this code, then it would obviously be like a void, whether it was a catch or across the end zone, to use it kind of in a motion capture. Very complicated stuff, but it would be something interesting to think about, and maybe someday that will happen or something like that.
It's funny to think about is that for how many years Madden was trying to catch up to be like the real game, and now the real game is trying to catch up to Madden.
That's true.
But should we jump into Bears talk?
Oh, I've been ready for this.
What we have is the Bears are the Bears made a lot of moves, and they needed to make a lot of moves, and they made a lot of moves. And I think if you polled Bears fandom, they were very unhappy during the legal tampering period because so many moves were happening and the Bears weren't making any of those moves. But once the actual opening of free agency started, the Bears made a lot of quick and decisive moves.
And this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I knew that tampering period, that wasn't when the Bears were going to strike. They were going to strike as soon as free agency opened, because you saw when they had a chance to nail down Nagy right after his team lost in the playoffs, boom, they did it. There were the talks during the first round of the playoffs, but they weren't going to announce anything or do anything while that was all happening. They jumped in and they did this. And I kind of tried to tell some people, though many people also understood, just be patient. Once it opens up, things are going to open up. And boy, did they open up.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Pace knew he had to completely overhaul the wide receiver core and had to completely figure out the cornerback situation, because the cornerbacks, you were left with Cravon LeBlanc. I think that was like your best corner, but it was still under contract. And wide receiver, it was like Kevin White and Tanner Gentry. I think that's who you had.
You were in desperate need of moves.
Yeah, absolutely. You were in desperate need, and you can absolutely go to the draft and try to do it that way, but then you're painting yourself in a corner. Then you're forced to use your first round pick on a corner or a wide receiver, and that's really not where the Bears want to be. That's not where they don't want to draft out of need. They don't want to draft out of necessity. They don't want to draft out of desperation. And that's where they were if they wouldn't have struck quickly in free agency.
Right. And what you saw in this free agency so far is not only have they addressed needs, they have done it with specific guys that they think could be a good fit. They weren't going to go out and sign an older, injury-prone Jordy Nelson or somebody who was in the really late 20s, pushing 30s. They got young guys with enough experience to be a, quote, veteran presence, but still young enough to have plenty in the tank. And I really think that is the right way for this team to go, considering where they're at, considering who's part of their core. That was kind of their plan all along, and they've executed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so. With wide receivers, they ended up signing. They tendered Cam Meredith, so more than likely he'll be back next year. And then you signed Allen Robinson, who arguably was the best wide receiver available in free agency.
And they went right in and got him.
And they also signed Taylor Gabriel. And I think both of those guys are 24 years old. So right in their primes. And when their contracts are over, they'll still be at the end of their prime.
Gabriel's 27, but that's still relatively young.
Okay,
Robinson is 24.
Okay, so then still, Robinson got a 4-year deal, and so he'll be 28 when it's done. And Taylor Gabriel will be 31, which is, towards the end of where you'd want to have a wide receiver, but he's a slot receiver, so, they're not asking him to be the number one guy.
I think that Gabriel is going to be a great depth piece on this offense because you see a guy with incredible speed and just incredible athleticism. These are the guys you want to make your offense more versatile. You can have him run screen plays. He's a good route runner. He's not going to be your typical throw downfield guy like Robinson will be, but you can put him in a number of different plays and he can gain you extra yards. Having a guy like Taylor Gabriel, I think, is going to be a really good asset to have.
Yeah, I mean, Bears fans were livid that the Bears didn't make the trade to get Jarvis Landry. And honestly, as long as Taylor Gabriel stays healthy, you've got a guy that's equally as good. And you got him without trading it. You didn't have to give up anything for him, and he was less money. And you got him for 4 years instead of the 1 year franchise tag.
Yeah, frankly, I like this better. I really do.
Yeah, I'm sure the Bears would have loved to have gotten Jarvis Landry, but that it wasn't in the cards. You went out and you don't dwell on it. You go out and you get the next best guy, maybe even equally as guy. And to make your point even better is they went out and signed Trey Burton, who is, like a hybrid tight end / wide receiver, kind of like a Zach Miller. And that, I want to talk about that a little more, that's honestly one of the more exciting signings that the Bears had for me.
Yeah, I love the Trey Burton deal. And he's only 26.
Yeah, but with Trey Burton so you've got a young quarterback, and Mitch Trubisky. The big knock on him coming out was how little experience he had playing in the college. He's had pretty much as many NFL starts as he did his college starts. He's going to be starting in his second year in the NFL with a brand new offensive scheme. And the concern is just to make sure that he's making the right reads, because he can make the throws. He can do everything physically. It's helping him make the reads. Now, having a guy like Trey Burton is going to absolutely help him out, because what's going to happen, and I wish I had a whiteboard here, is if you don't know if the defense is going to play man or zone, is the Bears are going to flex out Trey Burton, and that's going to force the hand of the defense. Are they going to line somebody up, bring him over to cover him, or are they going to, stay in their zone scheme? And it's going to absolutely, black and white tell Mitch Trubisky whether it's a man or a zone, and it's going to help him know who is going to be the go-to guy. And it's going to open up and make things less confusing. And having a guy, a tight end that can go out and run routes like that is what's going to be able to open that door for Mitch Trubisky. And I think that was something that they intended to, like, it's not going to be accidental. It's something that they're scheming for, is make it as easy as possible for a young quarterback to make the reads.
Just think about how essential, like you said, he's going to be for the development of this offense with Mitch Trubisky and everyone else. And also put this in perspective. Carson Wentz was really sad to see him go. When Carson Wentz is really sad to see you go, I think that's enough to tell you how skilled Trey Burton is in a number of different areas as a tight end.
Yeah, and the thing is, Mitch Trubisky, people will knock him and be like, well, he wasn't as good as what's his face that came from Clemson, Deshaun Watson. Yeah, and they're like, well, Deshaun Watson played like 4 games before he blew his knee out, number one. Number two, we don't know how he's going to bounce back from that.
He's had 2 constructive surgeries on his knee.
Yeah, we don't know how he's going to bounce back from that, number two. Number three, he was playing with a much better team and an offensive-minded coach who put him in a easy situation for a young quarterback to highlight his skills. Mitch Trubisky was playing for a Bears team that hates playing, a head coach that hates playing young players, and a guy who was a terrible offensive coordinator. So, you can't, it's apples to oranges. You can't compare those two things. We can start making the comparison next year when Deshaun Watson is, presumably healthy, and he's in the second year of a system, and Mitch Trubisky is with an offensive-minded guy and an upgraded offense. Then you can start making those comparisons.
I mean, it just must have been pure hell for Mitch Trubisky to play in the system he did, to have the targets that he had. I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been, because we're not kidding when we said he had nobody to throw to. Every throw he had to make had to be on a dime, or else it wasn't getting caught. Now you're bringing in guys like Robinson, Burton, Gabriel. These are guys that can help make plays for you in multiple ways, whether it's route running, whether it's blocking, whether it's opening up the field, whether it's making a good catch, just simply making a good catch, one that's more complicated than having to throw it right on a dime. I mean, this is already a much better scenario for Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, just think about this: is the 2 best wide receivers the Bears had on their roster during the regular season are still free agents on the street, in Kendall Wright and Dontrell Inman.
Yeah, that should really tell you something. I just really, really, really hope that this year, for once, we will see our number one guy stay healthy. Because remember, last year, our number one guy was Cam Meredith, and he hurt himself in the preseason. You're going to need these guys to be healthy. It is essential for Mitchell Trubisky's development, not only through coaching, but having the team around him healthy.
Yeah, it's absolutely. You got to have guys healthy, and presumably Cam Meredith is going to be fine. It'll be. He blew his knee out in the preseason, so a year later, it's going to be preseason again. That's the good thing is these guys did. Allen Robinson and Cam Meredith blew their knees out, but they both did it, before the season started, or Allen Robinson do it preseason or first game? It was
first
early.
game.
So you have so it was really early. It's not like they did it in Thanksgiving weekend. It's a much different situation when you do it August, September, as opposed to November, December, January.
Yeah, exactly. I think that obviously when you have a surgery like Robinson did, there's always going to be cause for a little concern. It's natural, especially football. Injuries in football happen 24/7. But I think that you can say that the athlete that this guy is, what he's doing, looking in the future, and what he's doing to prepare himself, I think that's enough to kind of say, hey, I think he's going to bounce back here and be the incredible asset that he was before. And also keep in mind that technology these days, and this could give hope for Deshaun Watson too. Medical technology these days can really help a guy completely rehabilitate from knee injuries like those. So, obviously, yeah, you could be a little concerned, but I also think there is a lot of hope for Robinson to be a great Pro Bowl type. Pro Bowl type player. Third time's a charm with the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, look at what he did prior to being injured, and with a terrible quarterback, the guy looked phenomenal. And Cam Meredith showed that he could make some plays, and he's more than likely going to be back. And Taylor Gabriel is a good receiver. Trey Burton, you are adding weapons. You are absolutely
good
adding weapons. So, yeah, good weapons. And the thing is now you're not going to have guys that can easily be covered man to man. You're going to be put in a position of you either try to take away the run, but you're going to have to play more man coverage against good wide receivers that can get open, or you're going to have to put that defensive back and have him be honest and stay back in coverage, which is going to lead to more open holes for Jordan Howard. That's the beauty of having a real offensive mind.
And I just love, I mentioned this earlier, I love the versatility that we're seeing here. You're seeing your guy you could throw downfield. You're seeing your speedster that could gain yards. And on top of that, you have Cohen and Howard doing their thing. Isn't it just, it fills you with excitement knowing that you are going to see an offense that can do multiple things. And that will allow you to open up the playbook. Because think about last year, even with that god-awful offensive unit, you saw the beginning of the Lions game at Soldier Field and a few other games where when they opened up the playbook with that team, things looked good. Then they went to conservative crap again, but think about it now. You can open up the playbook with these guys, plus more guys you're going to get. That's really, really exciting. And if we get the Allen Robinson from 2015 that got 1,400 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns, and a value of 11 on Football Reference, then we will be very happy to have him around.
Yeah, and not only offense. I mean, that the offense was what they started with, but special teams and defense as they filled the gaping holes. They signed a new kicker and they re-signed Pat O'Donnell. So now you've got a much better kicker who can actually kick, and you're bringing back a fairly reliable punter. You've shored up your backup quarterback, but you signed Prince Amukamara to a 3-year deal, and you brought back Kyle Fuller. And I wanted to address, there was a lot of talk about Kyle Fuller, and there were people that were saying the Bears were stupid for not franchise tagging him. And I don't understand why people think that. And here's where I'm coming from with this. So if you franchise tag Kyle Fuller, then where to negotiate a long-term deal, your starting point is like $16 million a year, because his agents are going to say, well, you franchise tagged me for 1 year, basically $16 million. So you think he's a $16 million cornerback. And that's where your negotiations are, the starting point for signing him long-term. Or you have to go through this again next year. And the price for a franchise tag is going to go up next year. Goes up every year for the most part. But by putting the transition tag on him, you said, all right, we have the right to refuse or right to match a contract. And you're basically saying, we want you back. We're just having trouble coming up with the market value for you. So he went out and found what the market value was. And the Green Bay Packers determined did all the hard work of negotiating and figure out what the thing is, the value is in the contract, and the Bears just matched it. So their division rival went out and did the hard lifting of figuring out what the value is, and the Bears just had to match it. And you ended up with paying him less than what the franchise tag is for this year, and it's essentially a 2-year deal with 2 option years. So if you don't get value out of Kyle Fuller, then you're only stuck with 2 years. But if he's good, you've got him for 4 years. And it's going to be less than franchise tagging him every year.
I think this deal worked out perfectly. And there was so many Packers fans, oh, we rose the price for Kyle Fuller. Okay, well, like you said, we spent less than a franchise tag. And the Bears have all this cap space, so it's not like it was really that big a deal. And on top of that, the Bears matched this offer within, 2.5 hours? It was like nothing to them. It was like, okay, fine. Well, then we'll just give it to this. Boom, done. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, they were happy. They had the money, and they were happy to spend it on him because they wanted him back. And the thing is there's fans out there that don't think Kyle Fuller is a number 1 corner. But you know what? If you listen to actual evaluators and you look at metrics and you listen to other GMs, Kyle Fuller is viewed by the league as a number 1 cornerback. Is he an elite cornerback? No. But he is a legit number 1 cornerback. And the Bears are happy to have him back, and happy to have him back for less than franchise tag money. And it's also a great for them because the Packers legit wanted Kyle Fuller, and they thought it would hurt the Bears and help them, and it ended up being the other way around. And also it's showing that the Bears are able to draft players and cultivate them into players and then sign them to second contracts. This is a good thing for the Bears.
I mean, at the end of the day, you need corners. You need a secondary, you need corners. And it's not like you just go out and get a bunch of other corners. This is a guy that, despite some inconsistencies last year, and talk about his value, as you want. I know it's not that set in stone, but I'd rather take the chance on having him than be good, because if he really doesn't work out, that doesn't hurt the Bears all that much financially. Like you said, it's pretty much a 2-year deal. They have plenty of cap room. And frankly, would you rather take a chance on him or let him go to Green Bay? I think the answer is pretty easy.
Yeah, and like I said, it was a win-win for Fuller and the Bears, because the Bears, they let somebody else do the negotiation. There was no hard feelings. You said, hey, Kyle Fuller, you figure out what you're worth, and we'll pay the market value. Kyle Fuller went out there and he got more than slightly more than the transition tag, and he got the 4-year deal. So he's comfortable. He knows where he is for the next few years, and he's getting paid. And the Bears are like, well, we're paying less than the franchise. We get our guy for, up to 4 years. It's a win-win. I'm happy.
I'm happy too.
And they brought back Prince Amukamara on a 3-year deal. So they brought back both corners from last year, and both corners played well. People that don't like Kyle Fuller will bring up the fact that he was one of the most targeted cornerbacks in the league, but he also had, how many was he, like one of the top 3 in pass breakups? Because people were like, well, Prince Amukamara is a legit cornerback in this league, and Kyle Fuller is coming off of an injury year and a bad year. And so we are going to test him. And for the most part, he rose to the challenge against pretty much everybody. You didn't see the Bears cornerbacks. Well, you didn't see Amukamara and Fuller getting beat very often. So you bring those 2 guys back, and you're probably going to end up with Amos and Jackson as your starting safeties. So you're bringing back all 4 of your starting defensive backs for the first time in how many years? You have all 4 of the starting defensive backs together again.
I did an interesting calculation before we went on the air tonight. I took not every single signing, but I think what was the essential signings so far this offseason. Robinson, Burton, Gabriel, Parkey, Lynch, Prince Amukamara, Kyle Fuller. The average age of those guys is 26. That's the average age. No one out of those guys I listed is over 28. Robinson is 24. Kyle Fuller is 26. So Kyle Fuller right now could be entering his absolute prime. And frankly, I'd rather that chance is being taken right now with the Chicago Bears than up in Green Bay. And think about it. Could you imagine how mad we'd be if the Bears just let him go to Green Bay? That would be really, really annoying. So be glad that he is a Chicago Bear.
Yeah, and I've heard people bitching that the Bears could have, for how little that Aqib Talib was traded for. And sure, it wasn't that much, but the problem was that Aqib Talib has the right to block trades in his contract, and he was blocking trades left and right. There was only 2 teams that he was willing to go traded to, 2 or 3. So the Bears were not one of those teams. So even if the Bears were going to offer better than what was given to him, he would have nixed that and not gone to the Bears.
And come on, Aqib Talib he's over 30. I don't know how much longer he has left.
Right, exactly. That was my next point. Is you saw how quickly Revis Island became, building an airport there for frequent destinations because it got visited so much. Darrelle Revis went from the shutdown corner in the league to a guy that couldn't even make it off of the street with a entry, like a veteran minimum contract. Nobody was willing to keep him. So Aqib Talib is going to hit that wall sooner rather than later, and you're paying him fairly good money. I would much rather have a homegrown guy that's making a little bit more but is in his prime, unless you're like ready to compete this year.
Exactly.
But then he'd probably willing to get traded to you.
Yeah, I mean, Aqib Talib this year, he's 32. He's played in Denver the past 4 years. He's been a Pro Bowler. He was a Pro Bowler last year. He was a Pro Bowler the year before, the year before, the year before. He's been a Pro Bowler 5 years in a row. I get it. He's a really good player. But the point of this rebuild that Ryan Pace, is trying to do is getting young players. That is what is really important. Getting young guys. Aqib Talib is just turned 32. He probably has another year or 2 left where he's going to be at a Pro Bowl level. Last year, he was a 9 in value. The year before, he was a career high 14. But those were also with some really good defensive Broncos seasons from 13 to 16. Last year they weren't as good, but you saw them in their Super Bowl year and some of the surrounding years around that. Really good player, played with a great team, a very different team. It wouldn't really make much sense for this Bears team where they're at to go after a guy like Talib.
Oh, absolutely. And the other one is people are mad because the Rams got Marcus Peters in a trade from the Chiefs. And they're like, look at the numbers Marcus Peters put up versus the numbers that Kyle Fuller puts up. Yes, I'm not going to argue with you. Marcus Peters is a better cornerback than Kyle Fuller. Does that make Kyle Fuller bad? Absolutely not. It just makes Marcus Peters really good. The problem is Marcus Peters is crazy. Marcus Peters is a nut job, and sure, he's making a lot less money than that, but he's on his rookie contract. This is the last year of when he's affordable. Next year is going to be the 5th year option, and he's going to be about $10 million next year. Suddenly you're like, oh, well, that's a much different story. And then after that, he's going to be a free agent. And you're going to have a team sit down and go, do we want to sign this crazy man to a long-term, probably the richest corner contract in history, knowing he's crazy? Kyle Fuller's not crazy. Kyle Fuller is, a good dude, has had there's no red flags as far as his personality or his off-field stuff. Marcus Peters is crazy. He's crazy on the field, crazy off the field. Last year, he took his shoes off and was walking around barefoot and thinking he was kicked out of a game, was not kicked out of the game. And, the man is bizarre, and there's bizarre incidents around him, and the Chiefs couldn't deal with him anymore, and that's why they got rid of him.
And also keep in mind that I think it's fair to say, unless we're talking trading up in a draft or trading down in the draft during the draft, I don't think the Bears right now are going to be wanting to trade for players in the offseason, considering where they're at. Again, maybe in the future, a year or so, when they're legit looking to contend, they will. But at this point right now, I think trades are going to be saved for actual draft day. Would you think that's a fair assessment?
I would say yes. And I guess I was going to wait till this point, but I might as well make it now, is I think the Bears have filled all of their absolute need holes at this point. So they don't have any glaring needs. There's definitely places they can upgrade, but there's no glaring need like cornerback was before they signed Prince Amukamara and Kyle Fuller to extensions. They've filled all of their holes, whether they're temporarily or not. But so there's nobody that they have to bring in. So at this point now, I think they're going to save their ammunition for the draft. And I mean, you would think that the Bears would want to have more draft picks and not move up to take players. But we've also seen Ryan Pace fall in love with guys and decide that they're this guy and he's going to do whatever it is to get them.
I don't know if that's going to be the case now, because really his point was to get Mitchell Trubisky, because Mitchell Trubisky is the most important player in the Chicago Bears organization. There is nobody more important than Mitchell Trubisky. That was his guy to be the next face of the team going forward. So I just don't think that he's going to do that same thing again.
Probably not, but he did move up to get Leonard Floyd.
Yeah, he did. He did.
I mean, neither one was moving really far up, but what was it, going from 10 to 9 is a lot easier and less expensive than moving up from 3 to 2. So, but I hope he is able to have patience and let his guy come to him rather than going up, unless they just absolutely fell in love with a guy. But here's based on their signings, this is what your starting lineup is going to be. On offense, your two outside wide receivers, probably Allen Robinson and Cameron Meredith. Your slot receiver is Gabriel. You've got Burton split out, Howard and Trubisky in the backfield, and then your starting 5 offensive linemen are Leno, probably Eric Kush, Cody Whitehair, Kyle Long, and Bobby Massey. So you've got your 11 starters right there for offense. So there's no glaring needs. Sure, you can upgrade your offensive line in most spots, but you've got 5 guys that are legitimate starters. On defense, you've got your corners in Prince Amukamara, Kyle Fuller, your safeties in Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson. Your middle linebackers are Nick Kwiatkowski and Danny Trevathan. Your 3 down linemen, Akeem Hicks, Jonathan Bullard, and Eddie Goldman. And your 2 outside linebackers are Floyd and Sam Acho at this point. Definitely room to upgrade there, but you do have bodies that can play if put into a tough position. So I don't expect the Bears to make any trades. And the beauty of this situation is, barring a major catastrophic injury between now and the draft, which I really doubt, it's not the time of year where injuries happen, is the Bears are going to go into this draft being able to draft the best player available, because whoever they get is going to be an upgrade. If you look at the top of 15 rated guys, you're not going to draft a quarterback, obviously, because I don't think that's an upgrade. And I don't really rate any of them that high. But if you actually looked at the 15 highest rated guys, pretty much any one of those is going to be an upgrade for the Bears. And that's a great situation to be in.
It makes you realize that for the first time in a long time, we may actually have some reliable depth, because reliable depth is something the Bears have not had in a long time.
Let's see. I'm looking at Mel Kiper's big board. Wait, no, are they going to put it? Or are they going to make me? No, they're not going to put it.
I think things got a little interesting with that Jets-Colts trade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Both teams were ahead of the Bears anyway. Makes you realize the Jets are thirsty for a quarterback. But now it makes you wonder. Like, I think the Colts were just genius in this, because they'll probably get the same guy they got at 3 as they get at 6. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they really didn't get anything bad in this deal. They got more picks from the Jets. I think they're really happy with that trade.
Oh yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they be? They've got, they got a lot for that swap, and you're the beauty of having a quarterback that you're confident in as your guy, and you still draft at the top, is there's going to be teams that want quarterbacks that are willing to move up. And Andrew Luck had an injury, and that's the reason the Colts were terrible. But Andrew Luck is your guy. You paid him to be your guy. And so you can move back and just take all the extra draft picks and build that way. The Jets are in a position where they suck at developing quarterbacks. They suck at scouting quarterbacks. And they don't really they have Josh McCown.
Didn't they get Teddy Bridgewater?
They did. He's going to be the backup. But, who knows? He hasn't played in a year and a half or longer, 2 years. So who knows? Who knows what you're going to get with him? Josh McCown is 35?
Yeah, he's old.
Yeah. And I think it was just, I can't figure out, it was an anomaly last year. I don't think you're going to get that same anomaly this year. The Jets are going to be in. Christian Hackenberg stinks. Who else do you have on the roster? You've got 8 quarterbacks that stink. And so you need another quarterback. You're taking another bite at the apple. So they're going to end up cutting probably 4 quarterbacks by the time they get down to their 53-man roster.
Could you see them getting whoever they draft be their guy, and then Bridgewater 2, McCown 3, or McCown 2, Bridgewater 3, or do you think they're going to cut McCown?
Oh, McCown will be the starting quarterback this year. I would be absolutely shocked if he wasn't.
So you think they're going to do the red shirt thing with their drafted quarterback, basically?
Yeah. So
okay,
their top 3. I mean, they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks, and it'll be Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, and whoever they draft. And whoever they draft is they're going to redshirt him, and they're going to wait. They're going to try to do what the Green Bay Packers did with Aaron Rodgers, and hope that works out well for them.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the draft order now because Cleveland has what, 1-4?
Yeah.
So they're probably going to take Saquon Barkley first overall, from what I'm hearing, right? At least that's what people are thinking.
I think this trade was awesome for the Jets Colts trade. I think this was awesome for the Browns, because I think they can now take a quarterback first and then get Saquon Barkley in the 4th pick. Whereas I think he might have gone to the Colts at 3 if he was there. The Giants are the only wild card, but I can't imagine they're not going to draft a quarterback, because even if you decide that Eli Manning is the guy this year, what is he, like 37?
Dude, they got to move on from him. Even if you have him for one more year, you got to draft a quarterback now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that quarterbacks are sensitive sallies, but he's got to realize that the end of the road is close for him. And, he loves that team. You've got to draft somebody and have them waiting in the wings. And this is a prime opportunity. So you got to assume the Giants are going to draft a quarterback. The Jets are definitely drafting a quarterback. And then you've got the 4th pick. So if I'm
that's absolutely right.
If I'm the Browns, I'm taking the quarterback that I like the best, rather than let somebody else decide who's left, and then take Saquon Barkley. And you know what? If Saquon Barkley is gone, he's really good. Don't get me wrong, but you can always draft running backs later, and you go, who cares? Then you draft Bradley Chubb or Minka Fitzpatrick. At that 4th pick, I take the quarterback that I like the best and make it my choice. And then at 4th is see who's left, Saquon Barkley or one of the defensive players.
No, I think you just made a great point. You really did, because I cannot see the Giants or the Jets taking Barkley when they need quarterbacks. Because think about it, even if the Giants come back next year with Eli Manning, with a new coach, it's going to be hard for them to be as bad as they were last year. You have the 2nd overall pick. This is probably the absolute prime time, not next year, not the year after, right now, to get your next franchise quarterback. So I feel like they have to take a quarterback. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't take one now, then odds are you're not going to draft in the top 5 next year, unless you just really suck. But odds are you won't draft in the top 5 next year. And then what happens is you're going to end up waiting until Eli is gone and not in the league anymore. And then you're going to have to tank, then draft a quarterback, and then go through the motions of having to start a rookie quarterback and go from there. And you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years of suckage. And if you don't draft the right one, it's going to be longer than that. It's always better to have a quarterback waiting in the wings rather than having to figure it out when there's no other option.
And also keep in mind that if you draft a quarterback this year and you start Eli Manning with him right behind him, he's going to be sitting behind learning from a 2-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, and I'm reading SI's big board, and they have Saquon Barkley as their number 1 talent, and they said evaluators told MMQB Barkley is a better prospect than Ezekiel Elliott was 2 years ago. Okay, I would agree with that, but Ezekiel Elliott was the leading rusher his rookie year, but who was second that year?
Jordan Howard.
And when was Jordan Howard drafted?
Fifth round.
So, okay, Saquon Barkley is probably better than Ezekiel Elliott. It's a better prospect. But you know what? Ezekiel Elliott was very good and is essential for his team. But there's a 5th round guy who was just as good for a worse team. Like you can get running backs throughout the draft up until probably the 5th, 6th round. You can get starting caliber running backs. So these teams that are just desperate. Unless, I mean, it worked out for Jacksonville to get to draft a running back because they had their general manager and their offensive line and the way they play defense dictated that they needed to establish a run game. And that worked for them. But the Giants had probably the worst offensive line in football last year. So, they neither draft a quarterback, or if they feel like they can go another run with Eli Manning, then draft Quentin Nelson to improve that offensive line. Either way, it's working out well for Cleveland.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you have 2 of the top 4 picks, and you are in a draft with a lot of elite talent. And I think what you said about that Jets trade working out wonderful for them, it really, really did. I didn't even think about that. But once I saw this draft order and you pointed that out, man, if they screw this up somehow, then the Browns are never going to have a winning season again. I mean, come on.
Well, this might have been before you were born, but there was one year in, I think it was like 91, that the Colts had the number 1 and the number 2 overall picks in the NFL draft and got busts for both of them.
Yeah, that was before my time.
It was Steve Entman and Quentin Coryatt were the 2 guys they drafted. And they had the number 1, number 2 overall pick. So yeah, there's precedence of teams drafting 2 really high picks and stinking on both of them. But I don't think the Browns will whiff on both. I really like what the moves that they're making and what they're doing with Dorsey. But it's brilliant for them because the Colts, as a team not needing a quarterback, were a wild card, and you have no idea who they were going to draft. They could have gone Chubb on defense. They could have, because they need edge rushing. They could have gone Barkley because they need a run game. They could have gone Nelson because they need to protect their quarterback.
They have a lot
they do,
of holes.
But none of them are quarterback. So that leaves a wild card, and that puts the Browns, when they were number 3, it put the Browns in the position of, we have to take the guy we are in love with, number 1. And now we're like, well, the guy we really love is Saquon Barkley, and he'll probably be there at 4. So let's take our second guy so we don't have to, we get both guys we want rather than go plan B.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't have said it better.
So I'm just looking at the big board, and every team's big board is going to look a little different, but I'm looking at SIs and just in my point of the Bears, no matter who they pick with that 8 pick, it's going to be a position where they can upgrade, other than quarterback, which I don't think any of I don't rank any of them in the top 10 prospects, but they have Saquon Barkley, number 1. And if he fell to the Bears would absolutely take him, and they would probably trade Jordan Howard and get another top pick. And Saquon Barkley, I love Jordan Howard, but for this offense, Saquon Barkley is an upgrade because of his pass catching ability.
But this isn't you saying he's going to follow the Bears.
I'm just saying, I'm going through the big board and saying who's an upgrade. Saquon Barkley, upgrade. Quentin Nelson at guard, upgrade. He's an upgrade over Cush. He's an upgrade over Kyle Long, honestly, with the injuries. Minka Fitzpatrick, he's an upgrade over Adrian Amos. Bradley Chubb at edge, he's an upgrade over Sam Acho. Tremaine Edmonds, depends on where you play him, but he's either an upgrade over Sam Acho if you want to rush him from the outside, or he's an upgrade over Nick Kwiatkowski in the middle. Roquan Smith, he's an upgrade over Nick Kwiatkowski. Derwin James, he's an upgrade over Adrian Amos. Denzel Ward, he's an upgrade over Bryce Callahan. Calvin Ridley, odds are he's an upgrade over Cam Meredith. Marcus Davenport, he's an upgrade over Sam Acho. Deron Payne, he's an upgrade over Jonathan Bullard. Connor Williams, he's an upgrade over Bobby Massey. Vita Vea, he's an upgrade over
You
Jonathan
think.
Bullard. Orlando Brown, upgrade over Bobby Massey. So you look, any of those guys is an upgrade. So the Bears are in a position where they don't have to take a specific player. Whereas if they would have lost Fuller and Prince Amukamara, they would have had to trade. They would have been in a position where they had to get a corner. Now they're not in a position. They can take whoever is going to upgrade them the best. And I honestly, at this point, if they don't make a trade down, that I think it's going to be Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from Virginia. I just see him as another Leonard Floyd, and they clearly showed how much they loved him. And I think actually he looks better to me right now than Floyd did at this point.
A lot of people are calling him a can't miss prospect.
I mean, he's got some work that needs to be done, but his size and athleticism is, whew.
It's off the charts.
Yeah, he's. I think he could be a sideline to sideline middle linebacker, and I think if they want him to be an edge rusher, he could definitely do that. He'd have to put on a little bit of weight, but he could easily put on weight and still have that speed. I think he's an absolute athletic freak, and you take him, and a guy like Vic Fangio would salivate taking him.
Oh, you bet. You bet. And that's why I think Fangio is also happy with another former guy that he had in San Francisco in Lynch. That signing, that to me screamed like a Fangio wants that type of guy type move. And just imagine him getting him and then drafting him. That would really make him happy.
Yeah, Lynch was a nice signing too. It's a guy who was down. Is the only good years he had were under Vic Fangio, and he was down after that. The Bears signed him to a 1-year deal. I think it was $6 million.
Something like that.
And so you have, if he stinks, no harm, no foul. But if he's good, then you can sign him to a long-term deal, and he's probably going to stick with you for cheaper money because, he stunk with anybody else but Vic Fangio.
Yeah, you look at his rookie year when he was with Vic Fangio in 2014, some pretty impressive numbers. And if he ends up just kind of being a depth piece in the end, then hey, you'll take that too. You're going to have to replace a lot of depth pieces on that linebacker core. You lost Pernell McPhee. You lost Willie Young. You got to replace him, and you might as well replace him with somebody who's had success with your current coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, is the guy steps in and knows what Vic Fangio is expecting and knows the scheme that he's trying to run. So it's a guy that is not going to be, what to expect, even if you're not going to get the final results, that he's going to know the system, and Vic Fangio knows what he has in him. So there's not a lot of unknowns.
Isn't it music to your ears when you are looking at these signings and you are hearing people say, this is a great fit with Matt Nagy. A player the Bears have signed is a good fit with their coach. Isn't that just so refreshing?
Oh, absolutely. At first when the Bears didn't go up higher, they didn't tank enough, and they only got the 8th pick. At first I was like frustrated because I'm like, man, we're going to lose out on guys. But now that I'm starting to see the way it shapes up is, the Browns at 1, I have a feeling with 1 and 4, they're going to take a quarterback and Saquon Barkley. Giants and Jets, quarterback. Broncos, probably taking a quarterback. The Colts, I'm imagining at 6, they're probably going to take Bradley Chubb. So you're going to have the top edge rusher off. But that leaves the Buccaneers. I have a feeling the Buccaneers will take Quentin Nelson, but but that leaves all of the best defenders -1 for the Bears. So they will be able to take Roquan Smith. They'll be able to take Tremaine Edmonds. They'll be able to take Denzel Ward. They'll have their top choice of every defensive player that could take Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think this is shaping up good for the Bears unless somebody decides to throw a curveball in there.
Yeah, I think they're in a great position. I really do. Considering where they're at in the draft and all the factors you just listed, I think they're in a very nice spot.
And if they need to, they've got I did a rough calculation until all the absolute contract numbers are officially out. I usually go with overthecap.com for that information, but they have not updated with a few of the contracts yet for the Bears. But based on my calculation, they have about $26 or $27 million left for this year. So they've got money left to spend if they needed to. But I think you're going to see free agency slow down at this point. And the way it's been going for the last several years is you get the first wave of free agency, slows down, teams will draft, and then there's like this second wave of free agency because they'll fill in the holes that they didn't fill in with the draft with available free agent players. So I think there's going to be some guys left, and the Bears might pick up a guy here or there, maybe an offensive lineman or defensive lineman. I think this is shaping up to be a really good offseason for the Bears.
Yeah, I think it really is. And I agree. I think their main essential free agent moves are finished. And boy, you got to be happy with what you got because like we talked about last week, free agency isn't going to usually fix every problem. It rarely does. But you consider that the holes that they have on this team and what they've filled with, you got to give this free agent signing so far. I'd give Pace an A right now, if we're being honest. And I think one of the things that really clinched that was the ability to get Kyle Fuller back with the price they did and preventing him from going to Green Bay. The whole transition tag, that whole process, the way that worked out, to me, that clinched an A in the free agency offseason of the Bears.
Yeah, honestly, edge rushers, there was nobody really in this except question marks, and the question marks are starting to get a lot of money. But they dressed their wide receivers. They got their backup quarterback that they wanted. They got upgraded kickers, brought back their guys that they wanted so far, and they're gonna sign a few more of their restricted free agents, like Cam Meredith will re-sign. I think Bryce Callahan will be back. Josh Bellamy will probably be back. The only one I was a little disappointed with was Christian Jones left to go to Detroit. I'm happy for him because he's probably going to get an opportunity to start, but I love the versatility that he had, that they could put him on the outside, they could put him in the inside, and he played well.
Yeah, I know. That was a little bit of a bummer, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Oh, me either, but it would have been nice to have him back. But this team is quickly getting better, and I think you're going to see them competitive. Will they make the playoffs next year? I would be shocked if they did, but it's not because the Bears aren't better. It's because they're in a really good division. You look at the Vikings. The Vikings were in the NFC Championship game, and they got better. They upgraded on their defensive line. They upgraded at quarterback. And the Packers are going to be better just because Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Yep. And the Lions were really good up until the end when they had a couple of bad breaks with bad calls that cost them games. And then they kind of deflated the last couple games, but they should have been a playoff team. So you have of the 4 teams, 3 of them are playoff caliber. So that's the only reason that you're not going to see the Bears be better record than they will. because they're in a good division, but you're going to see them play so much better. And in 2019, I think they're going to compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
So yeah, it's I'm very happy with the way things went so far. And you know, we're going to see not only with the Trey Burton, what he's going to do, but I think you're going to see some of their other tight ends take a step forward, and you're going to get better tight end play. Don't be surprised if Deion Sims gets traded on draft day. I don't think that would be a surprise. But yeah, I mean, right now at this point, it's waiting for the draft, because that's going to be the next big time that I think you see movement, major movement for the Bears.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
The only other thing I wanted to address was I got questions why the Bears didn't go after Richard Sherman or Ndamukong Suh. And the answer is both those guys are over 30. Alex brought up a point that we've brought up on this before, but he actually calculated it out for the players the Bears did sign. The Bears want guys that are either about to enter their prime or are in their prime. And after 30 is not in somebody's prime. Maybe a kicker, but a position player, no. Would Suh be an upgrade over Jonathan Bullard right now? Oh, absolutely. Is he going to be worth the money they pay him, and the fact that he's not going to be that same caliber of player when the Bears are ready to compete and they're locked into him? Not worth it. And I'm hearing rumors that he might go to the Patriots on a 1-year prove it deal. But again, why would he go on a 1-year prove it deal with the Bears when he could go on a 1-year prove it deal with the Patriots?
Right. Again, Richard Sherman was a great corner for many years. Who was the other guy you brought up?
Ndamukong Suh.
Ndamukong Suh. He might still have a few years left, but again, just those guys are not what Ryan Pace is looking at. And, the age of football, 30 is considered old for many positions. I pretty much, you and I pretty much summed it up. Young guys, that's what they're looking for. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't going to be the right fit. You want to get the guys that are going to be the right fit for what scheme you're building and what status you are when it comes to building a team or where you are in contention. It just wasn't going to work. We've seen the Bears go after guys like Jared Allen before, and older guys that have had good careers but were clearly past their prime. And Jared Allen's a great example of a successful guy that just didn't work out because of his age and all that stuff. So it's just why you're not going to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There was zero chance that they were going to bring them in. And just because they're a big name doesn't mean that they're going to benefit the Bears. And Ryan Pace is going to bring in guys that he feels are going to be benefiting the Bears now and in the long term as well.
Absolutely. I think that right now it's important that they're establishing this kind of mindset. I mean, we've seen Bears try to assemble teams willy-nilly. The fact that you have a mindset like this, I think, is really important to moving forward. It's important for the Bears. It's important for the team. You're trying to establish a new culture, a new build. This is an important step in this, is establishing this kind of mindset.
Absolutely. So I don't think there's anything more to talk about with the Bears, but did you want to talk anything about baseball at all? I have
a few Cubs thoughts.
Sure. If you want to start, go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously regular season is creeping up. We're starting to see a lot of cuts. They DFA'd Justin Grimm, or they released him, whatever you want. He's already got a new team. He's going to go to Kansas City, which I think the writing was on the wall with him. We all saw that coming. Unfortunately, it's been a real struggle the past year or so. He was really struggling in spring training. I don't know. Did you see any? It was during the day. I got to see most of the replay because it was on TV. Did you see any of Darvish's start against the White Sox?
I didn't at all. So,
well, between that and between Quintana's start yesterday, both were televised, both looking really sharp. The starter's ERA this spring is below 3. I know spring stats really don't mean anything, but to me, I think it's kind of promising and feeling good that you see a lot of these key guys for the Cubs having good springs, and that includes the pitchers, because Darvish, in his start against the Sox, he looked really sharp for the most part. Yeah, his breaking ball wasn't breaking always properly, but it's hard to get that snapping over right in Arizona that early in the season. You're not always going to get it the way you go, but the way he was locating his fastball, the velocity in the mid to high 90s, putting some great movement on it. I mean, he looked really good, and I just hope that this translates into the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about spring training is numbers don't matter, but they do matter. It's, you're not going to be like, oh, if this guy didn't hit 300, he's going to stink in the regular season or whatever. No, not necessarily, but if you see a guy who has struggled the year before and is struggling in spring training, you're going to make the assumption they're going to struggle in the regular season the coming year. If you have a guy that was ascending at the end of the previous year and you see progression in the spring training, then you go, okay, I can expect this going forward. So you can take away things, even though, if, a guy bats 500 spring training, that's not going to carry over. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's, I guess, not so much the numbers that matter, but the way they look when they're performing. So you
absolutely.
I think the Cubs would be much more worried if they didn't see, progression from some of their younger guys, Ian Happ especially, because they're counting on him to be their leadoff guy. And he came through. And do I expect the numbers that he put up in spring for the regular season? No, that's unreasonable. But you saw the approach he took and the way he was hitting and the way his swings looked and the way he was approaching the plate appearances. You can project those into the regular season, and you saw a different guy than you did at the end of last season.
Yeah, you look at kind of what, like you said, not the numbers, maybe execution is one of the right words. You're seeing how they for the position players, you're seeing how they take at bats. You're seeing how they're laying off certain pitches and how they're approaching other pitches in the strike zone, waiting back on breaking balls, trying to foul off the tough pitch when they're behind in the count, is stuff like that. And you're seeing a lot of improvement on that with Happ, with Schwarber, because Schwarber's having a really good spring right now. And then with pitchers like Darvish, the main thing that people have been looking at are like his fastball, his velocity, the movement, the location. So you're seeing a lot of that in a good way. You're seeing the fastball up there. You're seeing the location is good. That is something that I think does matter in the long run, because if he could bring that now, then you can darn hope that he brings it in the regular season. Yeah, sometimes you're going to have blue pits that fall in, or you're going to have some wild pitches when you're trying to find it. But again, that's spring. The ultimate stats don't matter. But when the stuff looks like it's being executed properly overall, that's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Grimm is the opposite example of an Ian Happ. Ian Happ, you saw when he came up, looked really good, and at the end of the season, start to struggle. And you saw the progression. But with Justin Grimm, he struggled last year, and he struggled in spring training, and you're like, okay, well then, we don't really expect much from this guy. It's time to move on from him.
Right, exactly.
And that's where it matters. So, it's I think you're right. Execution is probably a better term. The numbers per se don't matter, but the execution, how they look when they're doing things. Even if you're a pitcher and a guy took your curveball 400 feet, it's how was that curveball going? Was it a lucky swing, or are you leaving curveballs hang? It's how you do things, not so much the end result. It's how you're looking when you're doing it. And Ian Happ, Addison Russell, Chris Bryant are all looking better than they did last year. You're watching them, and that's hard to say because Chris Bryant looked great last year, and he's looking phenomenal in spring training. He's looking like he did 2 years ago when he won MVP.
Yeah, definitely. Again, you just hope this translates into the regular season. It just makes me more and more anxious for the regular season. Like, just start meaningful baseball already. You see the Cubs mashing and hitting home runs and scoring a bunch of runs in spring training. It's getting to the point where like, enough already. Just let's play some meaningful baseball.
Especially when they're mashing the Indians. Love it.
Oh, of course.
So yeah, you're right. At this point when's opening day?
It's late March.
Yeah. So we're not too far away. They're going to wrap up spring training soon. And at this point it's just kind of anxious. Like I'm tired of watching guys I don't know play. I want to see meaningful baseball. But it's good to see Tyler Chatwood throw solid innings.
Yeah, it is. You're seeing a lot of the good movement on his pitches. You're seeing him do kind of what you're hoping him to do, and a little more, because he's getting a lot of strikeouts this spring. Again, will that translate into the regular season? I don't know, but at least it's a good sign.
Yeah, it's a sign when your number 5 pitcher is looking really good out there. Yeah. I mean, how many teams in Major League Baseball can you say that their number 5 pitcher is solid? There are not too many of those teams.
Well, someone could still sign John Lackey.
And on the other side of town is, not surprisingly, Eloy Jimenez was sent down to AAA. Or is it AA? I don't know. They sent him down to the minors, which makes better sense. I think that's a better fit. I think it was AA. But I think there were fans that wanted to see him on the roster, but even if he was ready to play contractually, I don't think that they would have him start the season. It didn't make any sense. They'll bring him up later in the year and let him play. And I don't know. I think the best thing you can take away from the White Sox spring training so far is there's been no controversy.
No, there really hasn't. I think the only thing that's been annoying for the White Sox this spring was some of the nagging injuries, but I think they'll overcome most of those.
Yeah, that's all you can hope for. I think the biggest question I'm going to ask for the White Sox is, will their opening day starter be on the team after trade deadline?
Who's going to take James Shields?
I bet there's somebody desperate.
Oh, I don't think anyone would be that desperate for James Shields at this point. Unless he somehow has a decent first half. I mean, it's kind of funny. You saw last year, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm completely wrong, but James Shields had like a start of a few decent games where he kind of just did the pitch by contact type guy, get, ground balls, soft pop outs, not really go for the strikeout. And then things kind of, fell apart. So, I don't know. I just don't see many teams wanting to trade for him, if any.
All right. So we'll play guessing game. Who?
Okay.
I mean, we won't know the answers to this for a long time. Who do you think will lead the Cubs in the regular season in strikeouts as a pitcher? Not as a batter.
I'm going to go with Darvish.
I'm going to write these down. Darvish.
Okay.
I'm going to go Hendricks.
Okay.
Just to be different. I would have said Darvish if I was picking first, but I'm going to go Hendricks. Who is going to have the best ERA on the starting pitchers?
Then I'm going to go Hendricks.
I would have gone Hendricks too, but I'm going to... Wow. It's going to be Hendricks, but I'm going to say Darvish just to be different.
Okay.
Who's going to lead the team in batting average?
In batting average? Boy. I mean, they're great on base, but they're not batting average is batting average. I assume you mean like everyday players.
Qualifying players.
Qualifying, right. I want to say either Bryant or it's going to be either like Bryant, Rizzo, Almora, maybe. I'm going to go Bryant.
Hap. I'm going to go there.
Ooh. Going bold. I like
Bryant,
it.
I say Hap. Who will lead the team in home runs?
I'm going to go Bryant.
I'm going to go Schwarbs.
Okay, this is
a hard one because it could be Rizzo as well.
Of course.
And then who leads the team in on-base percentage?
I'm going to go Bryant again.
I'm going to go with the Riz.
They'll be very close. They will be very close.
Now, I think we're going to have, these are pretty educated guesses on these. Should we, for shits and giggles, should we do it for the White Sox?
Sure.
I'm going to bring up the White Sox roster because I don't even know who's going to make this team.
Yeah, I think the question that I'm going to have is who's going to be called up when.
White Sox roster. All right. So who's going to lead this team in strikeouts as a pitcher?
The thing is, I don't know when Michael Kopech's supposed to be called up. What's the rotation? It's Shields, Reynaldo Lopez. Is Lucas Giolito going to be
Fulmer,
in it?
And probably Gonzalez until Rodon comes back.
I'm going to go Giolito.
I mean, I would go if Rodon was going to play the whole season. I would go with him.
Yeah, but he's not.
I'm going to go Shields just because he's an innings guy. I'm just going to say, and I think just sheer innings wise, that's what not skill wise, but innings wise. I think that's what's going to get him. He'll collect them rather than earn them.
So like garbage time points, basically.
ERA.
I'm going to go Giolito again. I've really liked what I've seen from him in the spring.
I'm going to go... No. Man, I'm going to go Gonzalez.
Really?
I think partly is he's not going to have as many games, but I think he'll have some quality ones. This is really out on the limb because it'll probably be Giolito, but I'm going to go Gonzalez. And that would
Okay.
be if I had to bet on any of these picks so far, that would be the one I would not put any money on. All right.
Okay.
Batting average.
I'll go Abreu.
That's a safe one. I'm going to go Avi Garcia.
So you think he's going to continue what he's done?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Home runs.
I want to say Abreu again. Davidson's going to hit a lot of home runs and strike out a lot, but I don't think he's going to be an everyday player. Obviously, Robert and what's his face, Eloy aren't going to be up yet, so I'm going to go Abreu again. I feel like that's a
I'm going to
safe
go
pick.
Moncada.
Okay.
It's probably going to be Avi Garcia, but I'm going to go Moncada just because I think Davidson. I don't think he'll finish the year. I think there'll probably be injuries or he'll lose time to younger players. So that's my guess. Last one, on base percentage.
Okay.
This one's an easy one for me. Wellington Castillo. No.
Really? I was gonna say, I think it's gonna be either Garcia or Abreu. I'm just gonna keep going safe and go.
Yeah,
Abreu.
I'm gonna go. I was gonna go Abreu, but I'll go Garcia. I think you're gonna see some good things from some of the guys, but you're gonna see a lot of strikeouts. Tim Anderson doesn't walk, so it's going to be whatever his batting average plus like 3 points. I don't know. You may see like an Engel or a Delmonico have a fluke thing, but you're right. Playing it safe. I'm going to go Avi Garcia if you go Abreu.
Okay, yeah.
We'll see how wrong we are at the end of the year. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, except the Blackhawks had a 4-3 lead with a minute left and they blew it, and then Berube let in a terrible goal in overtime, and the Blues are now back in the playoff race, and that makes me feel yucky.
Yeah, I looked at it a few minutes ago and I was like, they got the lead. They're up 4-3. And
terrible goaltending, terrible defense. It was pitiful.
Yeah, it makes me laugh when you hear announcers or beat writers be like, "Oh, the race for the backup next year," and Berube's been a little more consistent.
No, he's bad.
Like they're both bad. Like maybe in a spot start here and there, you can be like, okay, and I guess reliability would be better than flash, who's streakier, like, but because, you just want to know what you're going to get day in and day out if you need to plug in a guy randomly here or there. But neither one of those guys I feel confident with, as a backup.
Yeah, neither of them. Like I said, I really wanted to win this game to hurt the Blues' playoff chances, but honestly, with that win, they're probably going to make the playoffs now.
I think there's a good chance. But what is there, like 9 games left?
Yeah.
I just know that the Blackhawks will not make it. I think it's mathematically impossible at this point.
Yeah, if this was against some other team like yesterday, I wouldn't care at all. But the fact that it was against St. Louis, God, that just pisses me off.
Yeah, I'm looking at, let's see, the 84, 89. No, Blackhawks are not mathematically eliminated at this point.
I think their tragic
'cause
number is
they're-
4 points.
So wait, they have 9 games left, and let's see, they're 15. So yeah, I think one more loss. If Anaheim wins their next game and the Blackhawks lose their next game, then they're mathematically eliminated.
Let's see. Anaheim they were up the last time I saw. So they're up 2-1. If they win tonight, then yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if they win tonight, they'll have the same number of games, and the Blackhawks will be, so they'll be 86, so 17. So they would basically have to lose every single game and not tie any, and the Blackhawks would have to win every single game and still leapfrog 3 other teams. So yeah, I mean, they're not mathematically out, but this would be like 69 Mets type miracle to happen.
Even more. I mean, their chances are pretty much 0.
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow they could be eliminated.
Yeah.
Mathematically.
Yeah.
But I guess this is going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please check us out on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. Check us out however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app, and hit subscribe. Thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on the plains. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go Bears.